Tottenham Hotspur 2, Manchester United 2, and a relatively exciting finish to what was a horrendous game of football. I'm really angry once again with the setup, with the style of football, with the delivery, and with the approach to the game at home against a team that are not that good. They're not good. Manchester United are average at best. I'm sorry if you're watching this, if you're a United fan. I'm just being real. Tottenham are bang average at times. United are nowhere near as good as the pivot in the momentum of the zeitgeist around United sort of believers are trying to make out. Today we set up not to lose again at home, and I'm sick of it. They're a team that we've beaten 4 times last season. They're a team that we have a holdover. We own Manchester. That was and should be the continued theme. But we set up in a fashion and a format that doesn't make sense to me. I understand we've got 10 injuries. I know there's context, but you work with what you have, and you have to set up and appreciate and appropriate your style and your tactics with certain conditional considerations, like you're at home. You're on the back of a decent win against poor opposition, but the games before, the home fans were getting fed up and sick and tired of watching turgid football. And that's what it's been. And we sat up in that vein today. No Mohamed Kudus available, so we played Brennan Johnson off the right-hand side. Fair enough. You have to do what you've got to do. Kolo Muani, getting up to full fitness, so you play him in the 9. Fair enough. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with playing Palhinha and Pape Sarr as a double pivot. What I'm not okay with is the way that they were instructed to play and participate in the game. On the left-hand side, for me, I said it before the game, my boy Wilson Odebear, Heisenbear, the guy that creates things. He's a chemistry man. He cooks. Heisenbear. He needs players around him that he has the wavelength and the chemistry. He's a compound element that brings things together. He's fluorine, is what he is. For those of you who don't know, fluorine is the one element that mixes and bonds with everything else. You need Udogie behind him. Who did he have? Well, he wasn't playing. They picked Jed Spence and Richalison. And here's the logic for me. We're thinking more about what Manchester United are going to do to us than what we can do to them. We're concerned more about Mbeumo than we are about what we can do. So Thomas Frank says if Mbeumo's the threat, you've got to play Jed Spence. And if you're going to play Jed Spence, then Jed Spence doesn't really work with too many people in front of him. He doesn't have those relationships. He hasn't got any experience or any real repertoire, a curriculum vitae of demonstrating that he has relationships. So if you're not going to have Udogie, then there's not that much point in having Odebear. So let's play Richarlison up the top on the left-hand side. How are we supposed to get the ball to Muani? I think the man had 13 touches at half-time. He was hooked. He didn't have a stinker. The ball wasn't given to him. You know why? Because when Xavi Simons picked the ball up on the halfway line, or if he picked up the ball on the centre circle in the opposition half, on the edge of that of that circle, Pape Matar Sarr, who, by the way, in his best games this season has played as a 10, was told clearly the instruction was, you sit back. And Palhinha was sat next to him. For the first half, for most of the second half, there was no instruction to let those two get ahead. And when they did, it was Palhinha that was moving ahead. And don't get me wrong, Palhinha's got a lovely shot on him. He had a chance today as well. It was saved, really lovely save by Semi Lemons. But you're giving him the license to get forward and you're telling Pape Sarr to stay back. There was no movement. There was nothing coming from the midfield to support the guys at the top. The amount of times Xavi Simons turned and had space to run into, but nobody, not one of them, was trying to get up alongside him to help. And then you have Richarlison acting like an NFL blocker, running in front of him in his way. Madness. Absolute madness. Richarlison misses a really gilt-edged chance, the header early on when it's 0-0. For the most part, the game was boring in the first half. There was no chances on either side. Manchester United turned up. They didn't press Tottenham. You know, Chelsea came to town and pressed us like orange juice. Manchester United sat off. They sat off and let us have the ball. But we couldn't do anything with it because we were forced into Johnson on the right-hand side, who we know can't take a man on. When he did, the only time he's ever taken a man on was against the left back of Copenhagen. I think his name was Lopez from memory, but I might be wrong about that. Who was like an oil tanker turning at sea. So Johnson tries it twice today against Udogie. Fast, pacey, can turn on a sixpence, no chance. The amount of times he kicked the ball into touch, absolutely horrendous. Same with Pedro Porro, by the way. He's been on the back of a lot of bad form with his passing stats the last 3 or 4 games. He was back at it against Copenhagen, but today, awful again. Should have been stinker and hooked. Jed Spence should have been moved to the right back and Udogie brought on at half-time. It shouldn't have been that way in the first place. It should have been changed before the first minute was played. Udogie should have started. Odegaard should have started on the left. Odegaard, for me, when he came on, changed the game. Mathys Tel comes on. Xavi Simons hooked. In the 75th, 80th minute, crowd boo. The crowd don't want to see Xavi Simons hooked every time. For Mathys Tel, I don't think they were booing the substitution Mathys Tel coming off. I think they're booing the nature of the fact that Xavi Simons always seems to be the victim in the eyes of Thomas Frank. He gets subbed every time that the team aren't producing things going forward. But the style of play that is being encouraged at home, it doesn't help him. He runs into space and there's nobody given the license to get up and help. And then you've got Johnson or Richalison. And to be fair to Richalison, I said this in the game, despite the fact he missed the aerial chance, I actually thought that he actually connected, like he didn't have the trampoline foot for the most part in the first half. I'm not saying he had a good game, but I think he had a relatively better game than the bar that I've set from him, which is 0 expectations. He tried to connect a few dots, but there was nothing going on. Moani gets hooked at half-time for some crazy reason. He's punished. Just like Xavi is punished every time there's not enough creativity. He's taken off the pitch when the reason why he's not able to do anything is because he doesn't have the license from the other players around him to be supportive. And Moani gets hooked because he can't get in the game because there's no support against a back three. It's madness. It's a madness set up at home. You know, I'm angry. And by the way, I would have been angry even if we won 2-1. I would have been less angry because obviously setting up that way is only okay if you win. And it looked like we were going to win. It did look like we were going to win. Just at the end, when Richarlison pops the ball in. First of all, let's just talk a little bit about the first goal. Mathys Tel. Yeah, I back the guy. He came off the pitch. He hasn't played very many minutes recently. Didn't play, obviously. He's not in the Champions League squad. Hasn't played a lot of minutes. But he got in a good position there. I think it was the cross from Odegaard, I think, for the first one. It falls to Mathys Tel. I think it was De Ligt around him. It might have been, it couldn't have been Harry Maguire. He'd already got off. It might have been Yoro. I can't remember whoever it was. And he's sort of holding him off, turns and pivots and puts the ball top bins. Yes, it took a deflection. Those of you that are going to hate on Mathys Tel are going to sort of dismiss it, undermine it and say he got a deflection. You guys do what you got to do. Agendas have got to agenda. But he gets us back into the game. Fair play to him. Then Manchester United go down to 10 men because they're injured. They run out of subs with Sesko going off injured. And then we have a bit of momentum. Suddenly the fans are up for it. Suddenly the crowd, suddenly the team want to sort of get on the front foot for the first time in 85 minutes. I mean, let's be honest, guys. It was 85 minutes of dross. It was a dreadful game of football. A dreadful game of football. It didn't need to be that way. We're set up not to lose. And setting up not to lose is only okay if you don't lose. But you know what? As I've said to you guys before, I don't rate draws. I don't care about draws. You can draw every single game of the season and go unbeaten, but you could still get relegated. Conversely, you can win 13 games and lose 25, and you'll have more points than if you go after every game as a draw is not a problem. It's not something to celebrate. It doesn't help. Yes, we're third in the table temporarily. Yes, we are. But those of you that are pointing to the table, look at how tight it is and recognise how relatively early it is in the season. And there's 8 teams. I don't know who's playing who, but there's 8 teams that are within 3 points of us right now. So by the end of the weekend, we could be anywhere from 3rd to 10th, give or take, maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure of the specifics. But to me, it's the It's the lack of desire to win the game. And those things are clear in the individual moments. You can see the fact that when Xavi Simons gets the ball on the edge of the centre circle and Palhinha and Pape Sarr are both staying behind him deliberately. Neither of them are making a run forward. Neither of them. When you have the options, and he looks up and he sees Brennan Johnson, who's man-marked by Patrick Dorgu, and he knows he can't beat that guy. And he looks to his left and he sees Richalison, who's either running into a blind alley, or when he gets the ball, he's going to lose it anyway because he's traditionally not particularly reliable with the ball to his feet. Again, I didn't think he had a horrendous game in that regard today, but I thought in the second half, he reverted back to type. First half, he was okay. Second half, I thought he was terrible again. But why was he still on the pitch when Mawani should have been on? And again, there are people that are going to say, well, he wouldn't have scored the winner if he wasn't on the pitch. Well, I don't even know if the winner would have gone in or would have been wide had it not been for that flick, because I'm pretty sure from the angle that I saw, it looked like it was going to curl in anyway. It might have hit the post. It might have gone an inch wide. Listen, it was a good finish. I'm not taking it away from Richarlison, but his all-round game is not good enough. Mawani can do a lot more with the ball at his feet. Mawani's a lot more intelligent and has got more depth of touch. He shouldn't have been hooked. These players are getting hooked in the forward line because they're perceived to be having bad games by Thomas Frank. And to me, the reason why they're having bad games and not very involved is because of the setup of the midfield. You can disagree, please do. Please feel free. I think a 2-2 draw was the fair result. I'm devastated that we ended up conceding. I'm devastated that we ended up conceding at the end, obviously, because 3 points would have put us second, and we're keeping up and everything. And it's not a bad result on paper, but for me, the performance was bang average for 85 minutes against a bang average challenge today. Man United were terrible as well. We won the midfield battle, but we didn't progress the ball. I don't mind doing that shit away from home. I get it. But at home, we play with fear. We are set up based on the threat, not on the opportunity. We do not set ourselves up at home looking at what the opportunity is. We set ourselves up to play because we're scared of the opposition threats. And that's not okay. And I have to challenge the idea of whether Thomas Frank is still in the Brentford mindset of thinking that a point against United is always a good point. I haven't heard his post-match takes, but I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. You know? The only thing I'd say, I'm super glad when Udogie came on and Odebear came on. I think it's game, set, and match on any other narrative that those two are the best players. They should be playing. I understand that there's they played in midweek or whatever, but neither of them have played in the previous couple of games as many minutes as they could have done. Pedro Porro seems to play every game. Why can't Udogie play a little bit more than he is? Like, the rotation play here is madness. Jed Spence started because they were worried about Mbeumo. And Mbeumo it's not like he's Saka. It's not like he's Salah. It's not like we shouldn't have thought that we could have a domination of the possession. At times in that first half and in that second half, there were 10-minute spells where we had 75% possession. I understand playing Jed Spence against the Liverpool where you're not going to be on the receiving end and you're therefore going to have to defend against Salah more than you're going to have the opportunity to do things. But when you're at home against Manchester United, who are bang average, they are bang average. They're not this team that people think they are because they won 3 on the bounce and then dropped points against Forest. They haven't turned it around. They're still a bang average team. And we're playing scared. It annoys me. It annoys me. I'm sorry if this is coming across as aggressively negative or whatever, but we've got 2 weeks to have to sit there and mull over this before we get to play Arsenal. We could have really done with those 2 points today. Vicario, on both goals, I'm sorry, positional sense poor. Second goal, he's standing inside his own box. First goal, Pedro Porro was poor positionally for the first goal. He had a stinker today. He had an absolute stinker, Pedro Porro did. And I love Pedro Porro, but I call a spade a spade. Absolute stinkfest. Romero, I thought, did very well, keeping his composure because he got an early yellow card in the game, relatively early. And, he still was aggressive. He didn't lose his aggression, but he kept his composure. So fair play to him. I thought Micky van der Ven was very good. thought Micky van der Ven was very good. However, there was a moment in that game where Micky van der Ven tried to do what he did against Copenhagen and what he did against Chelsea, where he carried the ball out. And this is what I've been saying to you guys all week, right? The narrative of playing to his strengths, which is something we're not doing enough of, you can't really do it in a back four. Because if he takes the ball and runs with it and he gets picked off, like he did against Chelsea, like he did today, against Chelsea, he was punished. Today, he could have been punished. We were already 1-0 down. It would have been 2-0, game over, game, set, and match. I want him to feel the freedom to do those sorts of things because he's good enough to do it. But you can't really afford him to do it if you're playing in a back four and if you're already in a transitional zone, a transitional mode, because you've already got players out of position. It was lucky that what happened in the pickoff, it went into a bit of a kind of pinball thing, and then we ended up getting the ball back. But it was very close to being punished. I love him. I love the fact that he's got the confidence to do it. But we have to set up the team to our advantage. And that's my point. My takeaway today, guys, and I'll leave it here, is you can be happy with the point or you can be happy with individual performances. And I am with a couple. I feel vindicated on the Odebear thing. I feel vindicated on the Udogie relationship. I think those things are clear and key and clinical, and you have to double down on those when you see them, Thomas Frank. You have to play them more, and you have to trust that they can do it more than we are. But more importantly, I think we are setting up not to lose. And two, I don't think we are taking enough time to respect the skills that we have and to play to the opportunities that the opposition detail presents itself. I think we are too focused on them and what they can do to us rather than what we can do to them. And I think that was the shape, that was the game plan today. And it was the same against Chelsea. It was the same against Villa. It was the same against bloody Wolves. And it's unacceptable at home. I can get on board it away from home, but not at home. Let me know your thoughts, guys. 2-2, a good point, bad point to me. Not happy. Not happy. Spent 85 minutes bored out of my mind to see 10 minutes of good, attractive, interesting stuff just to throw it away at the end. 2-2, we go again. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always,